Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
When last we left you, Friday night, we were getting ready for a snowstorm, and oh boy, did a snowstorm come. Now we got the Arctic blast through two-thirds of the country, so thanks for staying up late, and try and stay warm tonight. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Got a busy night scheduled for you. In hour number 3, of course, open phones, and we're going to debut the America at Night poll for the first time. I think I figured that out on the text line, so we've got that for the third hour. In hour number 2, we're going to talk to our old friend Bloyce Olson, who is the chief political commentator for WCCO, our affiliate in Minneapolis. He has been a political commentator for years. He has his finger on the pulse of what's going on, and somebody who's really plugged into the community. And if you really want to know what's going on up there, if you want to listen to a talking head, here's a man who is living it, has friends there, has acquaintances, is understanding what is going on up in Minneapolis. We'll talk with him in hour number 2. In hour number 1, in this first hour, before there was Instagram, before there was Twitter, before there was snark, before there was anger, before there was outrage, there were alternative weeklies. And then there was the alternative weekly, The Village Voice. And our guest, Tricia Romano, wrote a book called The Freaks Came Out to Write, The Definitive History of the Village Voice, the radical paper that changed American culture. Tricia, thanks for joining us on America at Night.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, you worked at the Village Voice for a while.
I did. I was there from about 99 to 2007 as a nightlife columnist and a music critic.
So take me through your life as the theater, as the music critic and the nightlife reporter. That must have been some stretch you had.
It was a very fun job. It was, really, I went out every single night. Usually I would be leaving my house at 11 o'clock at night when most people were starting to go to bed, and I was out until 3, 4 in the morning, many nights. And covering, DJs and club openings and burlesque scene and, all the fun things that make New York very New York, and you don't get to see in other places. And it was super fun. I mean, I was writing about Murray Hill in The Voice in 2000, 2001. Murray Hill is now a HBO star, and that show Somewhere, I think it's what it's called. And it's people used to always compare my life to Carrie Bradshaw in Sex and the City, but it was decidedly less glamorous than that. I didn't have any Manila Blahniks. We didn't get paid like that, and it wasn't that much sex. So I hate to disappoint everybody, but it was definitely going out all the time. Yeah.
So tell me, because it's a great idea for a book. What you did is you went back and you sort of interviewed as many people as you can find and all the interesting voices who worked there over the years. What was the reason? How'd you come up with the idea for the book?
Well, in 2017, 2 of the big Village Voice writers, Wayne Barrett and Nat Hentoff, had died, and some of the other Village Voice and former employees thought it would be a good idea to have a reunion for, all the different generations. And so I went to this reunion in the fall of 2017, and that week, we didn't know this was going to happen, but The Voice announced that it was going to stop publishing in print. So it became almost like a little bit of a funeral in a way. And when I was there, we had all these people from, all generations of voice writers and editors and photographers and whatnot, and people I'd never met or didn't know. And a couple of people got up to speak, and one of them was Ed Fancher, who was one of the founding editors of the Voice. He was the co-founding publisher. and he was 95. And also, Jonas Mekas, who was the founding film critic, he was 94. He was there. And then Susan Brown Miller, who was a famous feminist writer, she was like in her 80s. And I just kind of realized, like, all these people I didn't realize a lot of them were still alive, one, and that felt like we needed to capture their voices before they left. And so it's kind of, got to do this, before it's too late. And as it happens, a lot of the people I just mentioned, all of the people I just mentioned, are no longer living. So I got a lot of them before they died, and regretfully didn't get a few people. But this is the window of time where I think people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s are going to start to leave the earth.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Tricia Romano, our guest. The book is The Freaks Come Out to Write. This came across my desk. I was reading something, and your book was quoted, and I started to dive in a little more. And if you think about it, Tricia, we don't have the snark. I mean, we have the snark on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and we have blogs and all these opinion pieces and everybody from every corner. I mean, you can trace that all the way back to the Village Voice, right? I mean, the Village Voice was the first podcast / blog of its kind, right?
Yeah, I mean, Greg Tate was one of the famous cultural critics at the paper. He told me, we were the internet before the internet, and a lot of that has to do with voices. They used first person, and you have to remember in 1955, 1960, that wasn't done in newspapers. The New York Times only recently stopped using honorifics, like formal honorifics for their artists and such in the paper. So, it was super, super buttoned up in the 50s and 60s in newspapers, and very just a facts, ma'am, and no opinion, and extremely, not subjective, very objective in the way they looked at news and writing about things. And The Voice took the opposite tack of that, which was, if you were interested in the subject and you were even engaged in the subject, you were an expert. So, Jonas Mekas, who was the first film critic, he was a director. He was also, a filmmaker. And he hosted parties and viewings at his loft. And he showed a lot of Andy Warhol films. And so he walked into The Voice and he's like, "You don't have any cinema columnists?" And they said, "No." "And why don't you do it?" And that's kind of how a lot of the early writers started writing for the paper. Is they'd walk in and they'd say, "Why don't you have anybody writing about XYZ?" And the editor would be like, "I don't know. Why don't you do it?" And that's how it works.
Sounds like it sounds like a web page today, right? It sounds like Barstool Sports, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like Dan Wolfe, the original founding editor, he was very hands off in terms of editing and what we think of as editing. He didn't have you rewrite things, or he didn't cross things out. He would more or less, like, if you wrote something, he would kind of have a conversation with you about, why did you make this choice? Why not go this way? And then you would go back and you revise it. But it wasn't like pen to paper editing, and it was more like curation of people and of ideas. And, so just letting, if you picked people with smart ideas and interesting topics, you would end up with a paper filled with that.
Yeah.
And that's how we get Jules Pfeiffer, who was a political cartoonist, a satirical cartoonist, who won.
Tricia, hold that thought.
Sorry.
Hold that thought. We got a lot more to get to. Tricia Romano, our guest. Her book is The Freaks Came Out to Write: The Definitive History of the Village Voice. It also changed the world in many numerous ways. We'll come back and talk about that. It also spurred alt weeklies all over the country. We will get into all of that with her in just a moment. These statements I'm about to read and tell you about and products have not been evaluated by the FDA, and the products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. Now, if you're like me and you enjoy the holidays maybe a little bit too much, all the heavy food, the sweets, the alcohol, it's taking a toll on your body, but you can make a resolution in 2026 to get healthy. And that's why you should give your liver a little bit of love by taking Active Liver from New Nordic. Active Liver is available in easy-to-take tablets or delicious gummies. That's an important part of your daily wellness routine and to keep your body detoxed and feeling its best. Now, I started using Active Liver from New Nordic. I noticed less digestion issues, better energy, and I felt healthier and less worn down. Take my advice and get the New Year's off to a new start by adding Active Liver as a simple, delicious daily detox. Active Liver is available at Amazon, NewNordicUSA.com, or pick up some today at your local CVS, ShopRite, Meijer Grocery, and now Active Liver is available at Wegmans. New year, new you, New Nordic.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, next hour we're going to talk Minneapolis with Bloyce Olson, who is our go-to man on the ground in Minneapolis. This hour, though, we're talking about alternative weeklies. They have come and gone, but oh, was it a ride. The book is called The Freaks Came Out to Write the Definitive History of the Village Voice. Tricia Romano was a writer for the Village Voice, and she has penned this such a great story about the Village Voice and alt weeklies. You know, it's interesting, Tricia, because I'm a little bit too young I sort of missed the Village Voice. I was also kind of somewhat afraid of it because I was always thought as a kid growing up it was a gay newspaper, but that's not true, right? I mean, it did have a lot of gay voices in it, but it wasn't necessarily a gay newspaper, was it?
That was one of the things that they would say about it in the 60s and 70s and 80s. But it was certainly a very pro-gay rights paper, and it covered the AIDS crisis very closely. It also covered, it was actually there for the Stonewall uprising because the paper's offices were right above the Stonewall Inn. So all of the writers and editors were literally looking out their window and watching the whole event unfold. And we had two writers there, one inside with the police and one outside. So, yeah, I mean, it has a very strong gay rights legacy. And in fact, in 2000, Mark Schutz won a Pulitzer for his coverage of AIDS in Africa, an 8-part series for international reporting. But, it was, I think it covered gay issues as much as it covered civil rights issues, as much as it covered, feminist issues. It was really a very lefty publication, I would say, but although it didn't necessarily start out with that intent.
Yeah, it was very liberal, very lefty. But did I not read that it was, even though it was very left-leaning and very pro-civil rights, it was somewhat sexist in its nature in the newsroom?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I mean, it contained multitudes, right? That's one of the ironies of the paper is, the front of the book was, all the news reporters, most of them were white guys. The back of the book was, the cultural writers and, mostly Black, gay women. And there were always fights between those two factions over, what was more important to cover, what should be on the cover. And, remember back in the day, with a newspaper, you have a finite amount of space, and the cover was a really big deal. To be able to get your story on the cover was huge. And so there was a fight between them all the time. And, journalism still is a very sexist industry. Most newspapers, it's like 60-something% white guys of the whole staff. And, it just kind of feeds on itself that way.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was definitely a place where they fought each other over these issues inside.
I want to get into the next segment about the classifieds. So the classifieds, you could have done a whole book just on the classifieds. But is it true, Tricia Romano, author of the book The Freaks Came Out to Write the Definitive History of the Village Voice, that an unknown rocker from New Jersey needed a drummer, and so they put an ad in the Village Voice for a drummer?
Sure did. Bruce Springsteen, he got Max Weinberg, the famous drummer, from the Village Voice ad. I think Kiss also got their drummer from the Village Voice. Blondie got their drummer from the Village Voice, Clem Burke. They put ads in the paper. I mean, that was, there was no Craigslist, right? There's no MySpace. To date myself even more, there was no, there was no place to, no Twitter, no Blue Sky, no Instagram to post like, hey, we're looking for a drummer. There's only the Village Voice, which is, goes back to what Greg Tate was saying, that we were the internet before the internet. The classifieds were gold,
Yeah. I want to come back and talk about the classifieds, but think about how the world changed when Bruce Springsteen needed a rocker, and so he put an ad in, and Max Weinberg was picking it up and looking at it and said, hey, you know what, I'm a drummer. Max Weinberg, right? I mean, that's one of the greatest rock groups of all time, and they came together because of the Village Voice. The book is called The Freaks Came Out to Write, The Definitive History of the Village Voice, the radical paper that changed American culture. Tricia Romano is our guest. Next hour, we're going to check in with Bloyce Olson, who is our go-to man, our political commentator on the ground in Minnesota. We'll talk about what's going on there. We've got some breaking news going on there. We also have our poll. We also have a text line open. If you have a question for Tricia, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. That's the phone number. That's the text line. You can text your question to her, and we'll try and work it in here the next segment. The Freaks Came Out to Write the Definitive History of the Village Voice, the alt weekly of alt weeklies. More with Tricia Romano right after this.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
The book tonight is called The Freaks Came Out to Write, the Definitive History of the Village Voice. It was the internet before the internet. It was Instagram. It was blogging. It was podcasting. It was blogs, all before blogs existed. Tricia Romano is our guest. Tricia, let's talk about the height of the Village Voice. Didn't the Village Voice or the company end up buying the other alt weeklies around the country? That must have been in its heyday, right?
It was in I think the mid-late 80s, early 90s that they started to acquire other ones. They bought the Seattle Weekly and LA Weekly, City Pages. I'm forgetting all of them, but they had about 7. That was part of the then owner, Leonard Stern's idea to expand. But I would actually argue that the height of the paper was probably late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, in terms of the content and, its sheer power over, the city, its influence in the city.
So it was read in the city, obviously. The Village started in the Village, but it did have a wide readership outside of New York, did it not?
Yeah, it did. I mean, there was at one point they tried to do a national edition, but you didn't really need to do that. I remember buying it in Seattle where I went to college, at the newsstand. You had to pay, pretty penny for it. But yeah, a lot of people read it, or they went to their libraries and read it, and it gave them the idea that they should come to New York. And a lot of the people I interviewed over and over, they were like, I'm in a small town, and I go to the library and I read the Village Voice and I read Robert Christgau, and I think I gotta make my way out to New York and do this, because there weren't a lot of other papers, until I would say mid '80s, late early '90s. Alt weeklies weren't, everywhere. And I think by the time the early '90s rolls around, that you start seeing the explosion of alt weeklies around the country. um, you know, the Voice had a grip on that format and that style. And when that went away, I think it starts to lose its grip.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it's it's the big daddy of all weeklies.
Yeah. What? How did Rupert Murdoch come to own it? Was that a sour note? It seems like a strange buy for Rupert Murdoch.
It's so bizarre, right? Like, to think about it, but in a coup, basically, he bought, um, New York Magazine, from Clay Felker, who was the founder of New York Magazine. And but the way the deal was structured, he also got the Village Voice. And he didn't really want the Village Voice; he wanted New York Magazine. But then he comes to own it, and he realizes New York Magazine was being run into the ground financially, and the Voice was making tons of money. So he is a smart businessman, if he's anything else, and he knows not to mess with the formula. And so he doesn't mess with the formula, and it makes him enough money that when he sells it, he uses some of that money to start Fox.
Wow. How about that? Let's talk about the class. Let's talk about the classifieds, because I didn't know. I don't think a lot of people know that the classifieds were a cash cow for newspapers
Yeah,
and was a cash
yeah,
cow for the Village Voice.
yeah. I mean, somebody was saying, because a visual display ad costs more money to produce and to put in the paper, but like a few lines of text, seeking a roommate, or apartments, or a band member, it made so much more money. And at a certain point, you know, that was, especially when Voice went free, because we all forget the Voice was paid. You had to pay for it for most of its existence until the early '90s. When they go free, advertising, the classified advertising, is really how they make all their money. And so when Craigslist shows up in the early 2000s, it's a huge hammer to the Voice's livelihood and to most alt weeklies. Because you're charging, what, $20 or whatever it is to put an ad in the paper. If you're a person looking for a roommate, and you can put it up for free on Craigslist. What are you going to do? And so it really shifted the business. That business model was unsustainable once Craigslist came along.
Is it true that when the Village Voice came out, people would line up to read the
Oh
need a
yeah.
roommate, or there's a
Mhm.
2-bedroom apartment available?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because especially right by the Voices offices, they go to Cooper Square, because the Astor Place newsstand would get them the first edition. To get them like right off the press, basically. And so if in New York, the housing market is so competitive. And at the time there were brokers and broker fees, and so if you could beat people, be the first person to respond and to show up to rent the apartment, you have a leg up. And yeah, that was a main main draw.
Hmm.
So all the writers fighting over whether or not their cover was going to be the one. They didn't necessarily think that maybe the real reason everybody was picking up the paper was so they could find an apartment.
Crazy. Yeah, who knew that Craigslist was the demise of newspapers? It wasn't just the alt weeklies, but as even the regular dailies took a big hit when the
Yeah,
classifieds went away, right? You had help wanted ads, you had
yeah,
jobs,
yeah,
I had a
yeah.
truck, I have an old beater truck, I have a
Yep.
refrigerator. I mean, it was never ending. Tricia Romano, our
Yeah.
guest for a couple more minutes. The book is The Freaks Came Out to Write the Definitive History of the Village Voice. Tricia, from the text line here, somebody from Seattle, your college town, asks, how did the Village Voice treat Donald Trump? Good question. What did the Village Voice say and report on Donald Trump?
Well, in 1979, Wayne Barrett wrote the first expose investigative report on Donald Trump, who was just starting to become a figure in New York. And he basically exposed him and his company for their racist rental policies. They were not renting to black people. And it was a big expose. It was one of the first and many that Wayne Barrett jid on Donald Trump. We were constant thorn in his side, and in fact, Barrett wrote the first biography on the future president.
How about that? You also, getting ready for the interview, I didn't know this. Again, I was probably a little bit too young for this, but Robert Moses was probably the most powerful man in New York. And the Village Voice uncovered quite a bit and was able to sort of expose Robert Moses for all sorts of things. Talk about Robert Moses and the Village Voice for a moment.
Well, Robert Moses he was sort of in charge of city planning, and he had many different jobs in his history in New York. But he wanted to run a highway through the lower, downtown Manhattan and through Washington Square Park, and he wanted to, bulldoze it, put traffic through it, and the Village Voice had a mother. A writer who she was not a professional writer. She was protesting this with Jane Jacobs, the city planner, and she went into the Village Voice and she said, "Why aren't you writing about this? He's going to destroy downtown Manhattan, but if he does this." And Dan Rolfe, true to form, said, "Why don't you write about it?" And so she started writing about it every week, and not political pressure that they put on Carmine DeSapio, and helped stop that. And also, they started backing a little-known candidate for VID, the guy named Ed Koch, who later became mayor. So that was probably their biggest early victory. And the founder of the paper at Banter told me that those stories helped keep the Voice a business in 1958, 1959, 1960, when they were really hanging on by a thread.
You also mentioned, we mentioned it was a very liberal newspaper and very left and very civil rights oriented, but it did make some news when it published some conservative ideas. Well, what was the writer who came out and was against abortion? That must have landed with a thud.
Oh yeah, that's Nat Hentoff. Nat Hentoff she started out as a jazz writer. And when he got to the Voice, he said, "I'll write for you, but I don't want to write about jazz." And so he started writing about civil liberties. And Nat Hentoff, somewhere, I think in the 80s, came to the position that, he was very pro-life, and that meant across the board. So, anti-death penalty. So if you can't be anti-death penalty and then be pro-abortion. It was his sort of line of thinking. And he infuriated all of the feminists at the paper. And, a lot of the other people didn't really agree with his stance because they believe the women's right to choose is above that. But yeah, the original Voice founders, they didn't necessarily set out for it to be a liberal enclave. It became that more and more so over the years. And so, Nat Hentoff was always, marching to the tune of his own drummer.
Does it exist today?
Kind of in a weird way. It's a website. It does publish pieces, but it doesn't have a full staff, and it doesn't have any real presence, and not on social media or anything. It's a strange animal right now, and I'm not really sure why the person that owns it right now owns it, but because they haven't done much with it in the way of what could be done with it, what it
Yeah,
should be.
well, believe it or not, there's a couple of these alt weeklies that just buy the website and then use it as a portal to, they get clicks through to whatever other porn websites or whatever else. So it's sort of died a terrible death. But but ultimately, in the end, right? It had a beginning, it had a middle, it had an end. The end, right? The internet killed it, Craigslist killed it, but it was a glorious time, was it not? It was a time and place, I guess.
Time.
Yeah.
It was a glorious time.
Yeah. Trish, what's the reaction? The book's been out a while now. What kind of reaction did you get from it?
Oh, it has been wildly critically acclaimed, I have to say, which, I did not anticipate. So many people loving it to the degree. But I think it also really taps into the nostalgia people have for that time and for that kind of paper and for that kind of writing and for that era of journalism. And nostalgia for those years of in New York, 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s in New York, when they were the most fertile and exciting years.
Yeah.
And, culture, CBGBs, all that stuff, hip hop. So I think it really scratches the nostalgia itch for a lot of people.
And you can find the Village Voice philosophy in podcasts and blogs and everything else all over the place now, and it all got its start.
Sure can.
Yeah, the Village Voice. The Freaks came out to write the definitive history of the Village Voice, the radical paper that changed American culture. Tricia Romano, thank you for an enjoyable hour. Good luck, and have a good day. Thanks for checking in.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Tricia Romano, the book is The Freaks Come Out to Write, the definitive history of the Village Voice. Who knew? Who knew? That because, who knew? A great story. All right, America at Night, back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, this weekend was brutal cold temperatures, lots of snow, but of course that news coming out of Minneapolis, which is heartbreaking. We're going to check in with Bloyce Olson next hour. He is our go-to. He's on the ground. He's well-connected. He's broke stories on this thing. He has his finger on the pulse. We'll get his sense and his thoughts on what's going on. Some news that's happened over the last couple of hours. Greg Bovino, who is the Border Patrol officer who was holding that news conference yesterday. He was in charge of the immigration enforcement in Minneapolis. He is now, according to sources, going to be stepping down and leaving Minneapolis. So he's out. And apparently there's also reporting going on that they are going to take some ICE officers away from the city. They are expected to begin leaving tomorrow. So we'll get into that with our guests coming up next hour. And then, of course, open phones. Look, we've got the text line, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729, right? You can text your comments to 844-262-4729. I believe you have to put the 1 in. You got to put 1-844-262-4729. Text your comments there. We also have set up a poll. So the poll, we're debuting it tonight. I'm in charge. I think it's working. I tested it. I reserve the right to say I messed up, but I think the poll is up and running. So the poll tonight is this. Very simply, our very first poll, short and sweet. Do you think ICE should leave Minneapolis? Do you think ICE should leave Minneapolis? Text, vote yes if you think they should leave. text vote no if you think they shouldn't leave. Simple as that. And, of course, text to the text line, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. And then throughout the night, I'll give you updates and see how it's going. But at the end of the night, we'll sort of get a sense of what our audience thinks. 1-844-2-McGraw. That's 1-844-262-4729. That's also the phone number to call. So if you've called, if you plugged it into your phone, plug it into your phone, lock it in, and then when you're ready to call. But more importantly, or not more importantly, but also we're going to get the text line going so you can text in your comments. I love, for those who aren't aware, I love the interaction with the audience. There's no fun me sitting in a room and talking to myself for 3 hours. There's no fun me sitting in a room for talking to you for an hour. I'd much prefer the interaction of the audience. You agree, you disagree, you want to go rogue. That's why I've set up the text line. That's why I open up the phones. That's why we've got the poll going. So the poll, very simply, should ICE leave Minneapolis, Minnesota? And you have to text in vote yes or vote no. If you don't put the vote in there, the little gremlins in the machine won't register your vote. So vote yes or vote no. Text it to 1-844-2-McGraw or 1-844-262-4729. It's as simple as that. Stay right there. We got lots more to get to. Bloyce Olson is our man in Minneapolis. We'll be able to break down exactly what is going on after that tragic story of that Veterans Administration nurse getting shot and killed. There are some reports after the video evidence, 10 shots rang out. So we'll get to all that next hour. 1-844-262-4729. That's the text line and the phone number. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, welcome back. Hour number 2. We're going to get with Bloyce Olson here in just a minute to talk about what's going on the grounds in Minneapolis. Greg Bovino looks to be out. Donald Trump signaling that some ICE agents are going to leave. Tom Homan is in. And that's where we are tonight. And we do have Bloyce Olson, who I hope, Bloyce, you were able to finish your dessert before you ran out to grab a phone for us tonight.
Oh, no worries. I was actually walking right out. It was my car that was in a place where I had already lost a cell signal. So I wanted to make sure I could be clear for your audience tonight. So,
well, thank you very much, and thanks for taking time for us. And I know it's a crazy days up there. You, of course, the political commentator for WCCO. You have a Substack, and you are truly connected up there, and you are a voice of reason. So we wanted to get you on at least to have a conversation with you and to be the voice for Minneapolis. It's been a rough couple of months. It's been a rough couple of weeks, and now it's a rough weekend with the news over this weekend. Now comes the aftermath of Alex Priddy and what happens now. Give us a sense of it's not all one way in Minneapolis. Give us a sense how on edge is the town tonight?
You know, I think the town is not as on edge as it was Saturday. I think that what America needs to know is that the images you see are not reflective of a whole city. This is the 14th largest metro area in the country. There are thousands of people going to sports games, going to restaurants, without having to deal with any issues. And so, like, for instance, last night, there were some agitators that were destructive, that they targeted one hotel. They clearly were not designed to be peaceful protesters or anything like that. They were there to cause havoc and damage property. And the police came in and the fire department came in and they got them away and they arrested them. That was one episode in one hotel block in an urban area. And so I want to just set the tone that, like, yes, ICE is here. They've been here. We've had 2 tragic killings of U.S. citizens. Well, ICE has been here. But these are in small pockets in our community. You know, the metro area is 4 million people. So for your audiences in towns like that, that doesn't disrupt the entire town or commerce in the entire town. It's disruptive. It's a distraction, but it's not changing the way everybody lives their life in the Twin Cities.
It's such a great point. When I was covering the Ferguson riots here in St. Louis, you would go there and see the looting and the fighting and then you get in your car and you drive 5 minutes away and somebody was, life was normal. And so it was such a dichotomy, but between what was going on and what was being covered and the rest of society. That's not to mean what happened isn't tragic and terrible, and we'll talk about it, but it is a point that needs to be made. In terms of the protesters themselves, we've seen a lot of marches, we've seen a lot of walks, and a lot of people holding signs and chanting and whistles. But give us a sense of the protesters. How many of those are out there? How many of them are actually getting in the face of ICE? How many do you think are outside agitators? Give us a sense of the quote-unquote protesters.
I'll give you from the bottom up. Outside agitators, probably a few hundred, okay? I think these are the kind of people who come in from Portland or other places. And they're real. And we saw them during George Floyd. And we're conscious of who they are. So I think that's one segment. The people who are disrupting ICE are very well organized local activists and party people on the Democratic side. They are extremely well organized. They have done trainings to try to disrupt ICE in their actions. So when ICE is seen in a neighborhood, they put out a call on their channel, and then they blow whistles, and they go, and they create a bunch of chaos. And that is where I think the normal person watching at home is like, well, I understand you don't want them here, but they are allowed to be here. And now you're creating a situation that's more and more tense for these ICE officers. And then I think the thing that you need to recognize is, like, Friday and Saturday, Friday especially, there was a very, very peaceful march of 50,000 people downtown Minneapolis. And in that march of 50,000 people, there was no issues. Those were marches of old, right? Civil rights marches. Everyday citizens, lawyers, doctors, people who are concerned about what ICE is doing in our community. They're concerned about people's rights. And that's the vast majority of the people who are visible or visibly protesting ICE's actions or presence in Minnesota.
Well said. Bloyce Olson, our guest, political commentator for WCCO, our affiliate in Minneapolis, also a Substack poster, well-respected, well-trusted political commentator. We'll get more with him in a moment. America at Night. Stay right there.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw Milhaven.
Bloyce Olson is our man in Minneapolis. He is a WCCO political commentator, and he's joining us tonight. We'll get to him in a second. Also, the poll is up. Text your poll. Vote yes. Text vote yes or vote no, depending on your opinion, obviously. The question is, should ICE leave Minneapolis? Simple. Should ICE leave Minneapolis? Vote yes, vote no, and text that to 844-262-4729. That's the phone number, or text your vote yes or vote no, 1-844-262-4729. We'll get back to Blois in a second. Let me tell you about a digital life with our partner, WebRoot. New year, new devices, new you, and new peace of mind with WebRoot. Get the protection you deserve with new devices and a new identity and privacy for 2026. Choose the protection that fits your life with WebRoot Essentials or WebRoot Total Protection. WebRoot makes it easy to choose the protection that's right for you. Got a new device? WebRoot Essentials delivers lightning-fast antivirus plus password manager and web threat shield, helping protect your device, your personal info, and your passwords from malware, ransomware, and more. Now, new year, new device. Whether you're choosing to upgrade tech or sticking with what you've got, now is the time to protect all of you and your family's devices at 60% off with WebRoot's trusted cybersecurity solutions. This year, choose the protection that's right for you. Visit webroot.com/AAN. That stands for America at Night, but that's got to be in lowercase. Webroot.com/AAN. It's a little bit of a... They don't make it easy for you, do they? Webroot.com/AAN in lowercase for 60% off. You got to work for that 60% off. Webroot.com/AAN, lowercase AAN, for 60% off WebRoot. Blois, talk to me about Chris Mandel, the Republican candidate for governor who decided to take his name off the ballot today. What happened there?
Chris Mandel, he's a very prominent litigator in town. He has defended police officers in recent years. He's a very successful lawyer. He had decided that he was going to run for governor a few months ago. When he did, he jumped into the race. He was a little bit of a disruptor because, you know, he was pretty moderate. He had given money to Democrats. He didn't pass all the MAGA tests as a Republican, but he was doing really well in some early straw polls. And when that started to happen, people were thinking, wow, he's got some momentum. He's gonna shake up this race. And then he saw what happened the last couple of weeks. And Tim Walz dropped out. I think that was the first time you and I talked of this race. And when Walz dropped out, the race changed. Now it is thought that Amy Klobuchar, the U.S. Senator, will get into the race. And if that happens, Republicans are going to have an uphill battle. But the other major factor in Minnesota, which is it's a light blue state, statewide, Democrats have an advantage, but it's a split state. We have a tied House. We have a one-seat Democratic majority in the Senate. Well, Madel looked at that. He looked at the damage that ICE's presence in Minnesota has caused Republicans in their chances of being successful. He saw some of the behavior of ICE agents, and he said, I can't run on a way to defend Donald Trump's work here in Minnesota. And as a Republican, he knew that is one of the litmus tests in the Republican Party these days, and he just decided to drop out of the race today. It was a pretty big surprise to me this morning when that news came in.
You know, it's interesting because there are a lot of Republicans who are now starting to criticize President Trump and this ICE policy in Minneapolis. I found it strange that the man running for governor from the Republicans has a similar point of view, but yet dropped out, while other conservatives and other Republicans around the country are starting to question Donald Trump the same way he was.
Yeah, no, I think the closer we get to the midterms, the more Republicans are going to distance themselves from Trump. I think it'll be interesting to see how that happens here in Minnesota. Republican legislators here and state legislators here are starting to, distance themselves from Trump. And then, I think our congressional delegation has been very careful not to criticize the president, but quietly, privately, they know this has not been a smooth operation for ICE. It's not good for the Republican brand. And frankly, they wanted to bring calm back to the state.
Yeah. Bloyce, I'm going to ask you a question that's impossible to answer, but you can handle it for me. And that is not the liberal protester, not the liberal neighbor, not the conservative neighbor that's pro-Trump, but that sort of middle of a road, sort of, moderate in Minneapolis.
Yep.
What are they saying about these last events of the last couple of weeks, and especially about the last 24, 48 hours?
They're very upset. They're very upset. And this goes to, I think, one of the modern elements of politics and media and the democratization of coverage. And I actually wrote about this last week. Our eyes and our ears do not lie. And for so many years, you got things filtered through politicians. You got things framed the way the media wanted them framed. But now you have this raw footage. And the raw footage and the narrative don't match. And when it doesn't match, the moderate says, I believe my eyes and my ears more than I believe the government or the media or anybody like that. And that's where the institutional trust crash is. We could talk about that all day long. I talk about it all day, every day. This is where the middle, it will flip, because you got to look at this. You look at the narrative that the government put out after Alex Priddy was killed. It didn't match any of the videos. And then the left naturally says, well, the government's lying to you. But I want to bring you back not that long ago when Joe Biden was on the debate stage and Democrats were like, he's fine. I don't know what you're talking about. But America's eyes and ears, and obviously some Democratic influencers, were like, yeah, that's not fine. That's not good. And I think that is where we have to get back to is, and I said this on my Sunday show, honest brokers, transparent, honest brokers as leaders. And it's been a while since we've had one of those, and I think that's the only way forward for our government.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point because so much of it is the color of the uniform you root for, right?
Yeah.
And we see it in sports, and now it's sort of carried over into politics. You root for whatever color your team is, regardless of what they say or what they do.
Yes. Absolutely. You do. And that's just the way we are. And by the way, so one of the themes that I talk about is signal versus noise. Okay. We need to focus more on the signals, the actual data, the actual facts, because the noise is so loud. It's so urgent. It's so immediate that it clouds out all of the facts. So, for instance, if you're on X and I'm on X, you're being served an algorithm. And I'm not anti-tech at all. But like last week, I tweeted at Elon Musk. I go, I'd like a new algorithm. I really like what I'm seeing in mine. I'd like a new one. Maybe food. Could I get a food algorithm for a couple weeks? Because in those channels, whether it's X or TikTok or Instagram, you're being served. I mean, you see what the ads do, right? You click on something, like I clicked on something today, I got 97 ads immediately.
Yeah.
And that's the same with your news preferences, just so you're all aware. And so that's where, look, I'm not going to fix the world on your show tonight, but I want smart listeners to know that you have to do your own homework in order to get that done. You have to do your own homework to get facts.
Bloyce, Olson, hold that thought. Lots more to get to with you. I have a couple more questions. He is a middle of the road. He is sits on the fence and calls balls and strikes, and that's why we love him. He's in Minneapolis. He's our ears and eyes on the ground. Also, our text line is open. Text your comments, and our poll is open. Should ICE leave Minneapolis, Minnesota? That's our question, our poll question tonight. You have to text vote yes or vote no. 1-844-2-McGraw. That's 1-844-262-4729. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Bloyce Olson, WCCO political commentator, well-respected voice in Minneapolis, joining us to talk about what's going on. Bloyce, are you seeing in the immigrant community people staying home? Give us a sense. We hear that there's more or less of a Meals on Wheels program for some of these immigrant families. Give us a sense of how they are handling all of this, both the legals and the undocumented workers.
Yeah, no, legal immigrants have as much fear as anybody who's undocumented. I think you have to look at the tactics. So, yeah, employers have had people not show up for work that are legal, documented, citizens. And even citizens who have shown that they're citizens, have been detained. And so, yeah, it has significantly disrupted parts of our economy. I think that the fear factor it's probably higher if you're an undocumented or you have a criminal record and you're an immigrant, but the fear factor is real. And in fact, I'll give it to you this way, which is, I think, what people don't understand. And I can't say that I understand it because I'm a white guy, middle-aged white guy, okay? But I know a 25-year-old mixed race, American, born and raised citizen, born in Minnesota, raised in Minnesota, who lives right adjacent, half a block from where Alex Pretty was killed. She's afraid to leave her apartment. This is somebody who would go to the bar, go to the restaurants, etc. But since she's mixed race, she has no confidence that they're going to trust or believe that she's a citizen. Now, if she doesn't go to work, she can't make her rent. If she doesn't make her rent, where is she going to live? I mean, that's the level of disruption. And I know it's really easy for your listeners to maybe say, well, she shouldn't have anything to worry about. And my point is, she does, and the way in which this mission was conducted in the first, in the intense stages, I can understand why people were afraid to leave if they couldn't prove who they were and that they were citizens, even though they have a driver's license. And by the way, who carries their birth certificate? None of us.
I thought it was shocking that 3M, Target, the Vikings, the Twins, right? All these major corporations all put out a statement together. I thought that was shocking considering the state of business today and how the last thing they want to do is stick their head up to get, chopped off. I thought that was shocking.
Well, I'm not going to say much more about that because I don't talk about things that I can't talk about that I do for work. So we'll just leave it at that.
Let me ask you about this Alex Pretty, and that is, I find it interesting that people have a hard time putting him into a box. He was a protester. He was what we assume was a liberal protester, but he was carrying a gun. He had a concealed carry. And it seems like those two stories conflated. People's heads exploded. They couldn't wrap their head around the fact that he was a concealed carry, gun-toting liberal who was a protester. That seemed to go off the rails the last couple of days because people didn't quite understand how that could be.
Imagine people's heads exploding, not understanding a human being who lives in an urban area, carries a gun, might have been a hunter, but, also, was a nurse, worked for the veterans. One of the most compelling videos I've seen of him was when a veteran died at the VA. He worked at the VA as an ICU nurse, and he read the, Freedom Isn't Free poem upon the man's death. I mean, that's where I think when you talk about the uniforms we wear of red and blue, we have to get out of that mindset because you cannot keep putting people in boxes. I have a friend since second grade, conservative, gun owner, urbanite. He brings his daughter to that donut shop for special occasions on Saturday mornings. And he's like, this isn't right. People are just going to get, by the way, they're great donuts at Clamdell Donuts. He's like, that's where I bring my 9-year-old daughter to get donuts for special occasions. These are not rough neighborhoods. This is urban areas like every kind of city, a vibrant restaurant. It's called Eat Street. That should give you an idea of how vibrant it is. It's all the great local restaurants are on that street. And so that's where I think I want your listeners to know that this is not the way people imagine it. And frankly, I'd just say that I think you asked about the middle. Immigration enforcement was a key issue in last year's election, and people supported it. But this isn't what they envisioned when they supported it. And when our ideas mismatch, we lose trust or we lose confidence. And the polling numbers have shown that politically for the president.
Yeah. Do we know any more about what happened before that video with Alex Pretty? Right. We see that the woman being pushed by the ICE officer. We see him sort of intervening. And then, of course, we see them taking him down. There's some insinuation along the way today that something happened before, in the minutes leading up to that push of that woman. Do we know any more about that?
I don't. I don't. And I'm gonna do what I think most people in the media should do, even though most people in the media don't do it. I'm not going to speculate. I've seen all the videos you guys have seen. I haven't done my own interviews. I don't talk to people like that. That's not my role. My role is to kind of give you the mood of Minnesota. And so I don't want to in any way add to the story in a false way that I can't personally verify.
I appreciate it. So when it's all said and done, Bloyce, we'll leave you with this, and we'll sort of give you the floor here. Take us back. This initial ICE influx of agents came because of that viral daycare video of the man claiming that these daycares were running a scam with federal funds. And it turned out, was it not, that those daycares were actually daycares and they were running normal daycares, and they might have had some violations for some type of putting the food on the same counter as the Windex, but they were fully functioning daycares and in the normal sense of a daycare?
I want to put it to you this way. Some of it was true and some of it wasn't. And as we dug into that video, what we found were, there were some daycares that were not licensed or active. So they had already been shut down or shut down themselves. Some of them were active, but maybe like in one case, and this is a legit societal thing that you and I, well, you might think of because you work nights more than me, is it was for employees who worked at night. It specifically served cleaning crews that clean offices at night. So their kids had an overnight daycare. So when he went there during the day, there weren't kids there because they were open from 2 to 7 a.m., not 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. And so you start to kind of weave these things together. There is no doubt Minnesota has a fraud problem. There is no doubt that Governor Walz misjudged the fraud issues in Minnesota. The viral video that went live from Nick Shirley on December 26th created more national attention about fraud. Parts of the ICE Homeland Security presence was said to be, we're going to look into fraud. I know of one place where those officers collected files from a business. There may be more. I don't know. I know of one. And so I think this is one of those places, and I say this a lot, there's a lot of puzzle pieces here. We might be missing a corner or an edge or some internal pieces before we know the whole picture. And we have to put the pieces together ourselves post-haste, because what we were told the picture was going to be and what the picture actually is are very different.
Yeah. Tonight, it's announced that this Greg Bovino's going away. Tom Holman's coming in, and it looks like they're going to take some ICE officers out. How is that news landing in Minneapolis tonight?
You know, I think everybody's got a little bit of a sigh of relief on that news. I think there's still going to be some conversations and some what does it really mean over the next couple of days. I mean, the state of Minnesota and local counties have rules about how they turn over detained immigrants. And by the way, in Minnesota, it's a county-by-county decision. So the governor can't mandate it, and each county has their own policy, which makes things complex. Those county policies or city policies are set by elected officials. Those are laws in those jurisdictions. So does the local law prevent them from working with the federal government? In some cases, perhaps. But I think those are the details that law enforcement, the thing that really kicked off last night and today was the Minnesota police chiefs and the largest law enforcement union in the state stepped up and said, we need to come to the table to find our way through this between federal and state officials. And I think they're the ones who enforce the laws. They're the ones who run the jails. And so that probably creates the opportunity for a constructive dialogue to happen. So
Bloyce Olson, who is our go-to with his eyes and ears firmly planted in Minneapolis. Bloyce, you are a voice of reason. We thank you for your insight. It is invaluable. Have a safe night. I thank you for taking time away after dinner and letting us chew your ear. So thank you very much. Have a good, safe night, and we'll talk to you soon.
I'm happy to come on anytime, but I'd be happy if Minnesota wasn't in the news.
Bloyce Olson with us. Bloyce, thanks. Substack is where you find him. He's on Substack, Bloyce. Olson, also WCCO contributor, our affiliate in Minneapolis. Look, we have a text line going and we have a poll going. However, it's a poll that if you text yes or no, it doesn't register. I didn't invent this poll. Actually, I did invent the poll. I didn't invent the software. So here's how it works. You have to text vote yes or vote no. If you just text yes or no, your vote isn't registered. We're getting a lot of people texting in yes or no. You got to text in vote yes or vote no. And by the way, I know some of you want to text in 6 or 7 or 8 times and have your votes count 6 or 7 or 8 times. I put that guardrail in, so you can only vote once from your phone. You have to go take your wife's phone or your kid's phone, and they're going to have to vote for them to register. So 844-262-4729. You have to put the 1 in there. So it's 1-844-2-McGraw. 1-844-262-4729. The poll question tonight is simple. Should ICE leave Minneapolis? Vote no. Vote yes. Text that to 844-262-4729. The votes are coming in. Lots of them are coming in. We're getting a lot of response. We'll talk about that next hour with Open Phones. Stay right there. America at Night, back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
All right, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Among the things that are going on in Minnesota, I don't think it's gotten a lot of attention, but a guy named Joe Thompson, the U.S. Career Justice Department attorney, he was probably best known for prosecuting those social service frauds in Minnesota, the ones that racked up those tens and millions of dollars of fraud. He was the one who prosecuted those crimes. He, along with 5 others, have resigned last week from the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office. No reason why, but the move comes after top Justice Department officials pushed the Minnesota U.S. Attorney's Office to investigate the widow of Renee Good, the person who was shot and killed last week by that ICE agent. Apparently, Joe Thompson objected to the decision to exclude people from that investigation into the shooting and the department's reluctance to investigate the officer, according to people familiar with Joe Thompson's decision. So you've got the Republican gubernatorial candidate who had a pretty good fighting chance. He has resigned because of all the things going on, says he can't defend the Republican point of view. And Joe Thompson, the top federal fraud prosecutor, quit over this ICE shooting probe. So Minneapolis is right in the middle of it, and in some ways it does feel like the U.S. government has picked a fight with Minneapolis. And it's awful. I don't know if it's true or not, but it seems like that the federal government has picked a fight and might be going to war with Minnesota. It's the videos, the pictures, the rhetoric seems to be at least, if it's picking a fight, but at least a police action with Minnesota. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We got a couple lines open for you right now. We're going to go to open phones next hour. But a lot of people calling in or texting in on the text line. We love it. The poll question for tonight is simply, should ICE leave Minneapolis? If you think they should leave Minneapolis, you want to text your vote to 844-262-4729. That's the phone number. So lock it into your phone, and so you can get to it at a moment's notice, because I'm not very good with phone numbers, and quite frankly, at some point here, I can't believe I haven't given out my own cell phone number, because I've been known to do that, too, every once in a while. But text your comments to 844-262-4729. And the poll question, a lot of people are texting in yes or no. You have to put in vote yes or vote no. And if you say no and then give me a diatribe, that that will register as one. So you can't do that either. Vote yes, vote no, and then that way your vote will be registered. And at the end of next hour, I will give you the results of the test, and we'll do it that way. Also, a little programming note. Tomorrow on the show, you're going to want to come back tomorrow on the show. It is our first installment. We are thrilled. It is the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, and in honor of that, we've reached out to the National Park Foundation, and they have agreed to come on the show on a regular basis and talk about, we're going to pick a national park, and we're going to talk about and take a deep dive into a national park each and every week. So tomorrow is our very first night with the National Park Foundation, which is a wonderful organization. And we're going to talk about the national parks, because who doesn't love national parks? We'll do that starting tomorrow. But we've got open phones straight ahead and open text lines. We'll get to that as well. 1-844-2-McGraw. They're lining up. Stay right there. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, it's Monday night. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for staying up late tonight. The hour number 3. So what does that mean? That means phone calls are all yours. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Here's a look at the poll numbers. Right now, our poll tonight, the very first poll, we figured out, we got the text line going last week, and I figured out they had a poll component to it, and so why not? Everyone else is doing polls. Why not us? So our poll question tonight is very simply, should ICE leave Minneapolis, Minnesota? Simple question, simple yes or no answer. You have to text vote yes or vote no. If you just put in yes or no, it doesn't register. You have to put in vote yes or vote no. I think that's the way it's working. Right now, 55% who have responded say no, I shouldn't leave. 41% yes, they should. So we'll see if those numbers change by the end of the hour. But you can call 1-844-2-McGraw or text 1-844-2-McGraw. Text to vote and then text your pithy and interesting comments. Let's go to the phones here. David in Palm Springs, you've been holding on way too long. Welcome to America at Night. Hello.
Hey, I just started listening to your show about I think right when you started a few weeks back, but I have to push back a little bit. And I think your poll is pushing back too. First of all, your guest, I'm sure he's a great person. He sounds like a nice guy. I live in California in an area that is 88% Hispanic. And I'm not afraid to go out. And by the way, the Border Patrol here is busy. They're everywhere all the time. I am not afraid to go out. I'm Hispanic. I look Hispanic. If with my sunglasses on, I look like a thug because I got the goatee and everything. I am not afraid of the police. I am not afraid of Border Patrol. If they pull me over, I show them my license. They do my background check. They say, hey, go along, Mr. Gonzalez. Thanks for cooperating. Now, I think the real problem is not that the government is picking a fight with Minnesota. Minnesota and all the sanctuary states and cities picked the fight with the government, and we had an administration that was not willing to stand up and pursue the law, do what they're supposed to do. Imagine if we had an arsonist burning houses down and we said, should we get rid of the fire department because, you know, they're doing things wrong. They're not saving enough houses. We would never take that poll. I wish you would take a poll.
But hold on a second. Hold on a second. There are people who no one disagrees we should get rid of the bad guys. No one disagrees with that. The question is, to what length? You're arresting citizens by accident. You're shooting other citizens by accident.
Why is that happening?
I don't know.
The reason that's happening is because local government, local police, local mayors are not cooperating with ICE so that they don't have to go out into the streets and find these people. They already have them in prison. So hold on a second.
Just so I understand. David, I have a full phone bank of phone calls. I just want to see where you're coming from. You're saying the death of this pretty gentleman, right, is the police's fault in Minneapolis?
No, you're twisting my words.
That's why I'm asking you.
I'm telling you, it's the politicians and the mayors, the people who are telling the police not to cooperate. In other words, we wouldn't have all these people out in the streets going bananas. And there are states where Border Patrol and ICE are doing a great job. And because local police are working with them, there's not riots, people aren't dying, people aren't getting killed. It's only in these places where the local government, the mayors, the governors are pushing back. You said it.
David, I thank you for the phone call. Let's go to Paul in Boise, Idaho. Paul, good morning. Good evening. You're on America at Night.
Yeah. The more I see the same tape over and over and over, the more it seems to me that, and I hate to admit it, that my opinion is it was suicide by cop.
Mm.
And I don't like saying it, but that.
Why do you think it was suicide by cop? Because I didn't see that. I saw him trying to come to the defense of the woman who got pushed down. He wasn't looking. He wasn't. He wasn't going full bore at a police officer. He was just trying to get in the middle of this woman who got knocked down.
Well, if you're going to go to something like that protest, and you're packing heat, and you got 2 extra clips, and you're not carrying your papers that you need to show that you have the ability to have a hide a gun. Excuse me for the wrong term, but
I haven't read that. I didn't know that he wasn't. I haven't seen where he wasn't carrying the proper paperwork. And how do we know the gun was loaded? Maybe he was carrying the magazines separate from the gun.
As far as I know, that's what they're taught when they sign up for that. You do no good.
Well, we don't know if the gun was loaded. Everyone keeps talking about he had these magazines. Maybe he kept the magazines just in case he ever wanted to use the gun. But he had the gun; it wasn't loaded. I don't know if we know that. I mean, hey, Paul. Hey, it's a theory. I don't necessarily subscribe to that. I don't really see suicide by cop, but that's why you're allowed to have an opinion. I appreciate the phone call. Catherine you got it. Thank you, Paul. Catherine in Vancouver, welcome to America at Night.
I wanted to touch on the classified things that we used to do in the mid 80s. It was really cool. We would meet in this lady's basement out of our church, and it was huge because her property was just large. So her basement was huge. So we would have chairs all lined up all around the edge of her basement, and in the center she'd stand. But we had to bring clothing that our kids grew out of, and they had to be in perfect shape. They couldn't be, holes and grungy, right? And she would start at 5 cents, and it never got really high. And everybody left there with bags of clothes. It was awesome. We could, and this is the best part. $20 we would donate. And they'd stick it in the hat, and then all our names were in another hat, and they would pull out one of our names, and we're all mothers, right? It was all for the mothers would go there, and we had to promise, and we had to bring a receipt. Whoever's name got picked, they got to all that money, and they had to spend it on themselves.
How about that? And what I don't understand other classifieds. How does the classifieds come into all this?
Oh, well, we didn't bother selling their clothes. We would just go there and once a month and go to her basement, and we'd auction off all her clothes.
I got it. Yeah. Catherine in Vancouver, thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. From the text line, text your comments 84126. Love your show. Great topics, wonderful format, and pleasant, soothing voice. How do you do? Listening on KDKA in Pittsburgh. Thank you very much. The text line is now open. Let's get a couple other texts in here. Let me see here if we can find a lot of polls coming in here. See if I can find another one here. There was one in here that I liked that was nice. I get too many angry ones. Let me find a nice one here. I agree that the protesters should stay out of the church, but should I say stay out of the schools and churches as well? Okay, that I agree with. There was another one in here that I liked that voted. Here you go. The candidate that dropped out is representing Jonathan Ross, the killer of Renee Good. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Text, vote yes or vote no for the poll question. And the poll question is, should ICE leave Minneapolis, Minnesota? Text, vote yes, vote no, 1-844-2-McGraw. And, of course, we got some more phone lines open. Julie in Minneapolis, Jack in Gainesville, Georgia. You'll be first up when we come back. America at Night, back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Hey, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. The poll question tonight, should ICE leave Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota? Right now, the no's are leading 56% to 40, 56% to 40. 40% saying yes, they should. 56% saying no, they shouldn't. Back to the phones we go. Julie in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Welcome to America at Night. Hello.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. You know,
Sure.
I'm kind of a boring person. You got a lot of firebrands that call in.
No, Julie, you're more than welcome. Go ahead. What do you got?
Well, I just want to make a couple of comments. First of all, I think the nurse that was killed, I think, in my opinion, he's a Class A gentleman, and I'll tell you why. You know, he was trying to help a lady who fell when he was killed. And also his friends at work and his coworkers said that, you know, when the guys were making hostile, sexist, whatever comments towards, you know, fellow women workers, he would stand up to them and basically tell them, kind of go to hell. So to me, this guy, well, nobody's an angel, but to suggest like that one caller, he probably stole the gun, you know, chill out a little bit, you know, normal people carry guns. He's kind of in a sketchy area at 25th and Nicollet anyway. It's a little gritty. The other thing I want to say is, if you look at it objectively, there's a lot of reasons that are coming together as to why they are going to reduce the force of ICE agents in the city. You know, we have a possible shutdown looming January 30th. Hello, it's kind of close. And the Democrats have threatened, I'm not sure how this works, but they're threatened to not fund the DHS.
Right.
Most of the money has gone out anyway. Well, all the money has gone out for ICE. So the Democrats, they'd just be shooting themselves in the foot because other agencies wouldn't be funded. But my last thing I want to say is Attorney General Ellison, he was on the radio last night. I guess he has sued the Trump administration 50 times. And he indicated that, you know, sometimes they'll comply with the way the lawsuit runs as far as the law is concerned. And when I heard him on the radio today make a comment, he sounded kind of, you know, optimistic, kind of mellow. So I think I think they're going to reduce the force. I'm not a black and white person. Should they leave? Should they not? I believe, hey, why not reduce the force? Let things chill out a little bit. So.
Julie, first of all, great call, great comments. Call back anytime. Level-headed, we love it. And I think that we need to highlight something you said because it's spot on, and that is all these national hosts and all these national shows are talking about how the Democrats are going to somehow have another government shutdown. I haven't heard the nuance you put on it. I know that's to be true because we reported on that earlier this morning on my morning show. But I haven't heard the national guys talking about it. So you're absolutely right. The Democrats, if they do shut down the government, ICE is already funded. So they want to they want to shut down the government because we can't allow this to happen. Well, it's already happening. So all you're going to do is shut down TSA. All you're going to shut down is all the other things that are going to affect your citizens. and it's going to have no effect on ICE. So what's the point of shutting the government down if it's going to do nothing to cripple ICE, but it's going to cripple all the other things? So it's just the Democrats have
it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen.
The Democrats have
under pressure, terrible pressure. You don't know what it's like. You don't know what it's like here with these two killings. I just want an independent investigation. That's not too much to ask, is it?
Well, it might be because there seems to be some pushback on that, especially in the first one. We'll see what happens with this second one. There are still a lot of questions. I still want to know, right? How many shots rang out? How many officers did the shooting over the weekend? Right? Was it 1? Was it 2? Was it 3? I've heard reports of 10 shots. Well, I want to know about this gun. Did the gun, did they take the gun and then shoot? Was he going for the gun? What happened before the video? Why did this woman get pushed over? What happened to this woman who was this woman? I think you're absolutely right, Julie. I think both of these shootings need a overwhelming investigation by both the feds and local so we can get to the bottom of this. I agree completely. And what are people afraid of? Why not investigate? Why not let the truth come out and let the facts fall where they may? Julie? Call back anytime. Great phone call. All right, here's what we're going to do. Jack, I want to give you time to respond. Whoever I'm up against the bottom of the hour break, these national shows with these hard breaks, still getting used to. The poll is, texts are coming in. We're still 56-40. Should ICE leave Minnesota or Minneapolis? It's 56% yes, 56% no, 40% yes. Text your comments to 1-844-2-McGraw. That's 1-844-262-4729. You can text vote yes. You have to put in the vote. Vote yes, vote no, and then make your comments known. But you have to put in vote yes or vote no, and then make your comments, and we'll read some of those comments as we go along. But right now, it's 56-40. No is carrying the day. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We got Joe in San Francisco. We got Jack in Gainesville. Now that Julie's gone, we have a couple of lines open for you. America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. Tomorrow on the program, we're going to talk to the National Park Foundation for the first of what I hope is many, many, many segments. We're going to take a deep dive into a national park tomorrow, so look forward to that tomorrow. So come back tomorrow. Come back in a minute, too. America at Night. Back in a moment.
You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. What's on your mind? Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
From the text line from California, if the neighborhood around the Minnesota donut shop is so safe and family friendly, why did the guy choose to take a 9mm automatic pistol and some extra ammo to the protest? And the caller mentioned the gun was correct. If it was loaded and he had 2 extra clips, that's 27 bullets. Why so much firepower? What was he planning to defend or attack? Maybe he just... I don't know if the gun was loaded. All we know is that he had a gun and that he had some extra bullets. So what? He wasn't doing anything wrong. I never knew I was such a gun guy. He wasn't doing... Nobody alleges he pulled his gun. There's no picture of him pulling his gun. Why can't a man walk down the street with a concealed carry? It was legally his, and he had 2 extra clips. Maybe he bought them at the store and he was coming home. Maybe he went and got them, and maybe he was going to the range afterwards. There's a million reasons why. But again, he has a constitutional right to have a gun, and he does have a constitutional right to have a couple clips in his pocket. I don't know. I don't understand the controversy over that one. Jack in Gainesville, Georgia. Welcome to America at Night.
I got a couple things. First of all, this gun thing.
Yes.
Nobody takes a gun to a protest.
What are you talking about?
Asking for trouble. That's asking for trouble. Okay. Now,
it's his constitutional right.
I don't want to tell you how I know this, but when a police officer yells gun, there's imminent danger to whoever's there. So whoever's there, if there's 3 or 4 or 5 officers, they're trained to stop that person. Okay, I'm going to stop there. Okay, the protesters, a lot of them are legitimate. They're protesters. But then there are uniformed people who are trained, and they have commercial signs. Nobody is if I go to a protest, I don't have I'm not going to run down to the printing set and I'm going to say I want a sign, just like Ralph or George or nobody does that. These are commercially printed signs. Somebody is producing them and passing them out to the people that are being paid. Follow the money. I can't believe that some of these people aren't arrested and broken down and let the police know who is paying for this. We got to
Is that against the law? Is that against the law to be a paid protester?
They're not protesting.
Well, I know, but I mean, if I paid you money to go stand in a street corner and hold a sign, what law am I breaking and what law are you breaking?
Okay. A regular protester is not going to set fires. They're not going to attack the police. They're going to hold their...
Okay, well, setting fires is breaking the law.
That's right.
That's right. Okay, disrupting police procedure is breaking the law. Doesn't matter if you're paid or not. You were complaining that they were paid protesters to hold a sign. What law is being broken?
These are commercially made signs.
I understand. I understand they're commercially made signs. But where is the law being broken?
Because they're being paid to disrupt.
So I'm not allowed to pay someone to hold a sign on a street corner?
What is the sign for?
Well, whatever. What? Maybe it says haircuts $5. Who knows?
It doesn't. It doesn't though. It says.
But if it says ice is terrible or I love ice, look, I get Jack. Thanks for the phone call. I get there are outside agitators. There are outside agitators and anarchists for every protest. Whether it was Ferguson, whether it was George Floyd, whether it was January 6th, there's no question. There are outside agitators who like nothing more than utter chaos. That's yes. In the 21st century, that's what we have. We have a number of them who are agitators. Maybe they're paid for by Russia. Maybe they're paid for by a political party. Maybe they're paid for by people, liberals who are conservatives who are just looking to cause trouble. Maybe there are liberals who paid the January 6th protesters to be agitators, right? It's all across the board. Joe in San Francisco, welcome to America at Night.
Hey, first-time listener, first-time caller. I just want to say that I also have my concealed carry permit, and obviously I would not bring it to a protest because common sense would say,
Really?
It's already volatile enough. I would not carry my concealed carry to a protest.
Okay, but hold on. But Joe, is it against the law to carry a concealed carry to a protest?
I didn't say it was. No,
Okay.
I'm not saying it's against the law.
All right. Okay.
I'm just saying, me personally, I have enough common sense not to do something like that.
And why is that? Why is that? Why would you? Why is it? Why would you not carry one to a protest?
Because I just think that, especially what's going on in Minnesota, with all the volatility and the violence going on, it's just a you're not supposed to go look for trouble. And if you have a gun on you, sometimes people think that, I'm more invincible, and, it gives them a different attitude. So, you're trained not to go look for trouble. And that to me is just kind of looking for trouble, and I just wouldn't do it. Okay. But my main point is honestly, I think the protests are somewhat of a distraction from what's really going on in Minneapolis with all the fraud. Because you got the governor and you got the mayor gaslighting all these people to say, hey, go out there, resist, to distract from what's really going on. Because when you had that one state representative that voted, she was a Democrat, and she voted against the illegal immigrants continuing to get health care, she got assassinated, right? And then all this fraud comes out, and then they're following the money where this fraud's coming from and who knew about it. And then all of a sudden,
the fraud was prosecuted years ago under Merrick Garland.
Yeah, but also a lot of this fraud was known about for the last 10, 11 years.
Okay, well, okay, fine, but okay. So it was finally caught.
But they're really pushing on it now, and and then you got the mayor. The people are getting gaslit by the politicians, I believe.
Okay,
and
Joe, thanks for the phone call.
People are putting themselves unnecessarily.
All right, Joe, I got to go. I got David in San Francisco, another one from San Francisco. David, welcome to America at Night.
Oh, thanks, McGraw. Yeah, this is really an ugly situation. Every time those guys lie, at the top of the executive branch, they can cost the taxpayers billions and billions of dollars. And just lying about the deaths of these two people. And then how much does it cost to bring in 2,000 more ICE agents into a town that's only got 800 police? Now they've got 3,000 ICE and border agents in Minneapolis pretending that they're there to bring peace, but the cops are scared to death. They got chased, or these ICE guys tried to chase them off the crime scene. And it was only, I guess, that the police were not chased off. But the idea of destroying evidence, Donald Trump's got the gall to have him and Kristi Noem outright lying about the deaths of those people and their guns and all of it. Just lying and costing us billions and billions of dollars, plus the bad will. How many people are not investing in America anymore because they see it as a friggin' a whirlpool down the toilet? So
David, I got to go. Thanks for the phone call. Thanks for your comments. All right. Tony in Montreal. Tony, welcome to America at Night. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, hi. I love this guy from San Francisco. It's Trump's fault. Let's go back to the beginning, okay? 20 million people came into the United States unvetted. That harms you, McGraw. It harms your kids. It harms people in the future. Generationally, it's going to go on for years. But you cannot get rid of all of this nonsense. And why is not a government, whether it's in Quebec or in Ottawa, cooperating with law enforcement? If there is people that are in jail, they should be removed, period. We already had this discussion. So all of your people are talking about the current situation, but the bigger picture is, how did all this happen? Where did it come from? And one of the callers is right on, spot on. This is another insurrection. They're insurrectionists. They're professional people that are coming in making trouble. You know that.
Well, but hold on a second. The two people who were killed were living in Minnesota.
My point is not about the insurrectionists, the people that are paid. That's not it. The issue is, okay, why are not politicians that are elected to protect their own people not cooperating with federal officials? If there's people that are bad guys, they gotta leave. Bottom line, if they are criminals, they gotta go. And the end story, McGraw, is this is made out to obstruct the issue of what that first caller said. There's fraud. There's a massive amount of fraud. It's not just in Minnesota. It's in Maine. It's in California. And if you want to get rid of cash, corruption, and criminality, okay, in your system, the country is degrading. An outside Canadian is seeing this happen in front of my eyes. One of the greatest countries in the world is degrading from the inside when your opponents, Hamas, the Chinese, the Belt and Road program that the Synergia Foundation has warned the United States that China will be building satellites in Panama, in the Caribbean, in Manila.
Okay, but hold on a second. Tony. I understand we want to get rid of the undocumented workers. But how is it that Obama was able to get rid of so many undocumented workers, even within the sanctuary city structure where the towns weren't helping the feds? He was able to deport all of these undocumented workers in an orderly and safe fashion, and yet Trump can't do it. Trump's whole message is intimidation, whereas Obama did it, and nobody was shot, nobody was killed. He did it with the sanctuary cities where the towns weren't helping the feds. So Obama was able to get rid of a lot more bad guys than Trump was, and Trump's much more in your face.
So the answer is very simple. Obama had cooperation from 50 states.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't, because sanctuary cities have been around since the 80s. So he didn't.
They didn't. You know, McGraw, that I was not even an active person in politics until 5-6 years ago. Okay, and I never saw this type of obstruction of authority. And this is an inherent thing that's going on in universities, teaching white colonialism and all this nonsense that we should be guilted because we're white people. No, I don't want to.
All right, I don't know what that has to do with Obama doing it in an orderly and safe fashion and Trump doing it more in your face. Seems like Obama did a better job dealing with the infrastructure he was given, which is very similar to the infrastructure Trump's given. Trump wants to be in your face and show the power, and we see the results, whereas Obama, say what you want about the guy, deported a heck of a lot more people and was able to do it in an orderly fashion, again, in the same infrastructure as these sanctuary cities where these towns and these communities did not help the federal government. Tony, I got to go. America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Milhaven. What's happening in your world? Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of America at Night with McGraw Milhaven.
Let's clean up a couple of these texts. Got a lot of texts tonight. 1-844-2-McGraw if you want to send in a text. Here, the NRA says you can bring your gun to a protest. Yeah, I find that so bizarre that Kash Patel, the head of the FBI, who is a conservative's conservative, somehow saying you're not allowed to bring a gun to a protest? Really? I thought the gun rights people were all about you have a constitutional right to carry it all over the place except to a protest? I don't know. That seems kind of weird. I never knew I was more of a gun rights guy than Kash Patel and a lot of these supposedly gun rights people. Lighten up, McGraw. Crack the sky. Check out Good Song. I don't know what that means. How does any of us know even had a gun? With this gun be eyed to him, shot in the back, 10 bullets. Thank you for bringing sanity and intelligence to America at Night. Thank you very much. There was one here that I thought was really interesting, and I lost it. Let me see if I can find it here again. Text your vote yes or vote no to the question of the night, which is, should ICE leave Minnesota? I had a really good one, and then I blew it because I the texts are coming in so fast and so furious. I don't think I'm going to have time to find it now. Oh, here you go. I live 1 hour north of Minneapolis. I agree with the right to peacefully protest, but feel the agitators have gone too far, endangering both themselves and ICE officers. I feel protesters should not be allowed to be in the face of ICE agents, spitting on them, yelling and cursing in their faces, hitting them, hindering them from performing their duties. I think the protesters should have to stay back a few feet away from officers to keep everyone safe. You know, what's interesting is that this text very easily could be given after January 6th, but it is given after the Minnesota protests. It's so interesting when you dissect the January 6th arguments from the George Floyd protests and now these protests in Minnesota over ICE, right? It's like if a protester in January 6th brought a gun, that's his constitutional right. Protester brings a gun in Minneapolis, they shouldn't do that, right? So weird. All right, we are officially out of time. Chris in Swansea, Illinois, we are. I got 30 seconds. Chris in Swansea, Illinois, you'll be the last call. I got 30 seconds. Welcome to America at Night. Go.
Hey, McGraw. So I listen to you every morning, but real quick, Kyle Rittenhouse brought a AR-15 to a protest and killed someone, and he was called a hero. And those are the same people that are now saying that this guy, Alex Petty, whatever his last name is, is wrong for bringing a gun.
Chris in Swansea, Illinois, we will leave with that one. Our thanks tonight to Tricia Romano, who wrote the book, The Freaks. What was the story she wrote? What was the book about the Village Voice? The Freaks came out to write. And, of course, Bloyce, Olson in hour number 2. That's going to do it for us. Text your comments. You vote yes, vote no. Should ICE leave Minnesota? 844-262-4729. We'll give you the final results tomorrow on the show. Our executive director is Alex Gooden. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Milhaven. Thanks for calling. This is America at Night on Westwood One.